what you're doing. So.
Okay. Hello, everybody, fellow followers, and welcome to FanZcene. We are live now. We had a little bit of a mishap backstage, but it's okay. And tonight with me, we have Collin Schiffli of Die in a Gunfight. Collin, back to the question.
Yes.
How did this movie come to you as director?
Dude, well, again, as I was saying, thank you for having me. This is great. There's a whirlwind of press and stuff jumping in here, so this is exciting to be doing. Yeah, this movie, it was a long time in the making. I just finished my first couple of films. Actually, was starting my second film, which are both pretty low budget, micro budget indie movies. And the writers of Die in a Gunfight, they were working on the Ant-Man film, the first Ant-Man, and they were writing and working with my buddy David Dismalshin, who's an actor.
A great actor. I enjoy his
work. He's amazing. He's so cool. He's great, and he's got a ton of killer stuff coming out this year and next year. But yeah, we had done our film and gotten some attention, and we played at South by Southwest, and I kind of got plugged in through via him through the to the writers, and they had been kind of on a bumpy road trying to get this kind of passion project of theirs made, which was Die in a Gunfight. And it had gone through like every indie movie, indie or not.
I heard it was like on the blacklist of like one of the best unproduced scripts.
Yes, it exactly, and that was like I want to say 2010 or something, long before I was, running around as a PA, still doing anything, editing anything I could to get by and keep climbing the ladder and all that. So it had gone through different iterations where. Zac Efron was attached at one point, and that was like probably a $30 million movie kind of thing, and so it was kind of like all over the place. But by the time it kind of resurfaced again and got into my hands, one, I kind of hit it off with the writers. They were cool. I just thought they were cool guys, and I could really see their voice in the script, and I was like, dude, this movie's got so much just kind of cult nostalgia, cinema love stamped all over it, and it was a huge departure for me in terms of what I had done. My first two movies were super heavy dramas, and I was like, dude, let's of course I'm going to try to dive into this. This seems like a weird, cool project. So that's kind of how it came about, like 6 years ago, maybe.
Yeah. Well, I was talking to you. I watched the trailer, and like I mentioned, there's not a whole lot of movies out there that I've been really interested in seeing lately. But when I watched the trailer for Die in a Gunfight, it really grabbed my interest, and I really like the color palette that's used and the animation and the cast that you put together. I saw that a lot of people were saying it's like modern day Romeo and Juliet, but I saw that you put out that some of your influence was Streets of Fire.
Yeah,
I love that movie. I just bought the steelbook of that too. So
that's so random. Yeah.
Well, I bought it. I've been meaning to get it, and then you posted that, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna pick that up.
That's so cool. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like everything you were just saying is like the colors, the palette, the different, what I call like the different like kind of movie tropes. Almost. I don't want to say cliche, but the standard kind of like split screen and all the different kind of fun cinematic devices you can use in storytelling when you're making a film. This movie, when I read the script and kind of tried to picture what it was, how I was saying the cult stuff, that's, movies like Streets of Fire and True Romance was big. And I mean, there's tons of them, Fight Club, all those movies that are kind of these, the strange movies that you stumble into when you're, for our generation, at least, going to the video store and be like, what is this? Or you see it on some late night thing and you're like, you kind of stumble into those strange movies, and those are the ones that are kind of take weird creative chances, and maybe that's why they were not well received at the time, or they didn't find their audience for a while, and I feel like that's what I wanted. That's what I loved about the script. It kind of was bold and kind of fearless in that way, that it was familiar enough with a little bit of that Romeo and Juliet, but even the writers would say like they weren't thinking of that when they wrote it. It just kind of came together as this story. So yeah, it's like it's a movie. Like it's a movie. It's like caricatures and kind of larger than life scenarios. And so for me as a director approaching it, it's like, well, yeah, let's go bold. So everything that thankfully caught your eye in the trailer,
Yeah.
is kind of the stuff that we're like, let's really push that stuff and see, as an indie movie. Remember, it's an indie, it's
Yeah.
still a small budget film, in comparison to giant tent poles. And it's like, well, let's push that stuff and have fun, fun with it.
Yeah, and I mean, you could see it in the trailer because I know, like like you said, Romeo and Juliet, and I mentioned, but I could see there was more to it in that trailer than a Romeo and Juliet type story. And tell us a little bit about the cast, who you have all in this movie, and how you, because like you mentioned, Zac Efron was at one point attached. So how did you get to your cast? Which looks like an incredible cast, because I really dig in who you got in this.
Yeah, it's definitely. I'm glad you do. It's definitely an ensemble kind of piece, which again was new for me, new territory. And back when the Zac Efron stuff, and that was, like I said, way before me. So like in totally different hands, different vibe. When it kind of got to us and our producer Tom Butterfield, it was this thing of like, well, it's that size budget movie that of course you need to get names that can kind of be appealing, or people that can have a draw. But at the same time, it's like, who's right for the role? Who's like going to bring something kind of weird and fun? And, we kept saying like, who's our Gary Oldman? Who's our, again, all those kind of 80s, 90s movies where Gary Oldman or Christopher Walken or whoever would pop in. It's like, how can we assemble that team? And we kind of got a pretty eclectic group with, our villain, Justin Chatwin, and obviously Travis Fimmel being kind of a wild card. But our two leads obviously are the heart and soul of this film, Diego and Alex Daddario, Diego Boneta and Alexander Daddario.
I love their work too.
Yeah, they're both amazing, and getting to just meet them right off the bat and see their kind of passion for this project, wanting to bring something fresh to it and elevate it. Those are the things you want to hear to make me as the director make my job easier. One, they're gonna show up and kill it, but also they're gonna kind of challenge you and push you in ways you're like, okay, this is that whatever we're trying to find, the lightning in a bottle that we're trying to find here. Which again, you can't go out and try to make these cult movies or these or giant. You can't an overnight sleeper hit success. Like, you never know what's gonna happen. But if you go into it with that, like, dude, we just love the material and we want to do something unique with it. So anyways, long story short, they really brought it, and if we were going to have all these kind of larger than life kind of outlier characters, then we wanted to make sure our two core, our two heroes were very intriguing and interesting and had good chemistry, and they both just brought it on every level, and again made it easy for me, but also took it in a direction that brought something fresh to it, and it isn't just that kind of like, oh, young teens fall in love and have to, what I mean? There's like, when you see it, hopefully you guys will see, it's just, we wanted to push something more than that. It's like, no, what's past that? What happens after that when you're all bored with life and kind of numb? That's the world we wanted to explore.
That sounds good. That sounds interesting. So how was it like shooting these action scenes? Because like you mentioned, you had come from like heavy duty. Because I had actually never seen it, but I went back and watched the trailer for Creature. Oh my gosh, I can't think of All Creatures. With David and
Karen Gillan.
I'm so bad with names. I know these people, but I can never remember their names. And that movie looked like heavy. Yeah. So how was it like coming into like this, like with the bright, like the neon and the animation and the action and the love?
It's a good question. I mean, my first two movies, all my instincts as a filmmaker are always to obviously, create something that feels watchable and entertaining. I don't want to ever be so pretentious. Hopefully I'm beyond that. Like, we were talking earlier, that phase of, oh, I want to make this slow burn, beautiful movie. Even those movies, we were like, let's approach this with, we want it to be as realistic as possible, as grounded as possible. And, I want to see the sweat. That's my instincts as a director, like make it real, make it, smaller. If you're up here, bring it down to here. I want you to whisper. I want the audience to have to lean in. I want them to see the sweat and dirt on your face, not the makeup version of that. So my first two movies are, all that, all the the drama, the heaviness, the kind of gritty realism. And I think that's another thing that, I'm never going to venture away from that. I'm always going to want to circle back to that. But I feel like with this film, again, it just felt like such a love letter to cinema and such a kind of meta, tongue-in-cheek wit. Like Andrew and Gabe, the writers, they're so like charming, and when you know in person, they even kind of exude that same energy that's on the page, and that's in you know in the actual film. Hopefully, it's so weird. It's like, well, you guys talk like how you write, and I see where it comes from. And so, anyways, that was so appealing to me that I was like, all right, how do I do this? And of course,
how do you translate it?
Yeah, how do you translate it? Especially when my world is kind of like go real. Like, oh, that's the movie version of the costume. Let's find the realist. You know what I mean? Every character has a costume that looks like the movie version of the all creatures here below. You know, whatever. Let's make it the real version, which is usually a little kind of boring in a way. And I love that because it feels real. But this, I was like, okay, kind of. It was hard. It was like throw your instincts, you know, out the window in a way, and trust what's on the page, and then also, you know, trust your crew around you who doesn't want to have fun, you know.
You're making a movie. I mean,
you're making a movie. So it's like we all love movies, and you know, our DP and our production designer and our hair and makeup and everyone. It was actually our makeup artist that suggested, you know, was like, hey, check out Streets of Fire. And I was like, yeah, like you're right, it's so similar, and it's like getting everyone's kind of input there helped surround me in a way that was like, okay, like I kind of know what I want with this. Now all these people who also love movies, clearly getting to play around with the literal format of this meta, like, you know, you'll see in the movie, it's in the trailer, the lead Diego talks about how he sees his life like a movie. So it's like, okay, let's all bring what we're good at, our craft, and kind of let it kind of be visible in a way on screen. So yeah, anyways, I was kind of surrounded by that inspiration from the crew and the writers and the cast. And it was like, all right, I just take it and you know, all those things I love growing up watching, just put it on screen, try to emulate it, you know?
I mean, that's cool. And I dig that because like we talked earlier, you know, about watching like Joe Bob Briggs and those cult movies, and going through phases maybe where you didn't want to think about them, but then coming back to them and realizing how much you loved them, and you know, like Streets of Fire, like you mentioned, I love that movie, you know, and it's just it's one of those movies that I don't think a lot of people know about. But you can see like its influence, like on people like you and me and you in their work. So I'm really glad that, you know, some of that may be mirrored, but I'm digging that, you know, that you're putting your own original, you know, that's what I'm like, you know, because you can homage to so many things, but you got to make it your own, you know. And I'm digging that you do that. And I like the realism. Sometimes, you know, I like when people get in there and it may seem boring, but it feels real. So I like that. And I also like that, you know, that it's a movie. So you know, you're big and real at the same time, and it just it all works.
Absolutely. That's kind of the balance for me. And like, as I continue to hopefully explore new films, it's like, I love that I've opened up to exactly what you said. Like, you know, you go through that pretentious phase where you're like, oh, I only watch, you know, I don't know, you know, French New Wave films, and I only watch Goodfellas, and it's like, yeah, those are all great too, of course, like Scorsese films and everything. Like those are mainstream, but like, you know, you get the artsy movies, but then it's like, you can put as much of that stuff in there too, but like, don't forget the other inspirations that inspired you, and it was all those weird movies like you stumbled upon, whether it's, you know, Freddy Krueger or literally for me, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. If you watch all my movies, I have all these crazy nods. Nobody cares, but like to me, it's like it's came from my nostalgic youth. So it's like that's who I am. That's how I see what I'm making. And it's all these strange elements, and luckily, you know, like I said, the team around us, the producers and writers, we all had that. You know, we all grew up going to the video store watching movies. You know, not these. Not that there's anything wrong with movies now; they still have that feeling. But there's something about what we grew up in. I know every generation says this, but you know, our nostalgia is those 80s and 90s things. Like,
Exactly, man. I mean, I hit every single video store I could
yes.
possibly hit. I mean, Blockbuster was my main franchise, but there's mom and pops is where you got to
Oh
find
yeah.
some of the ones, that they didn't carry. And like,
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
they just like the influencers, they shape you. And you talk about the Ninja Turtles. My friend Thomas Connors Jr., who over on Midnight's Edge,
Yeah.
he absolutely loves the Ninja Turtles. That's like
Yeah.
his all-time favorite. The first movie, the
Yeah.
cartoon, the comics. He would absolutely love that, man. He would dig that. But yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just I personally I have started collecting VHSs again because
Cool.
I mean I'm at that age,
Yeah.
I get to the age where like I started seeing these VHS tapes, and I was like, oh, I remember that. Oh, I remember, and I just started buying them.
Yeah. Well, I think it's the same as like, I mean, it's so weird how now we're seeing this, but like, it's the same as like our parents or the adults in our lives when we were kids who are like, here's our vinyl, here's our record, which, records I've always understood. It's not like I'm so young. I'm like, what's a record? Like, duh, like, I grew up, with those, but like, I think it's the same thing. It's like, when we see that stuff, it's like even the smell of it, like, that feeling of like, you see like a Ghostbusters VHS tape. It's like I'm not literally gonna maybe pop it in, but I want that tape. I want that
exactly.
Our whole life, those we had those on our shelves. All the Disney movies, all the back whatever. So yeah, I hear you on that. It's
I maybe have bought a little too many lately. VHSs, and along with like I'm still buying like the 4Ks and everything now. So
of course.
I'm a collector.
You're going back in time and forward in time.
I know I'm at that weird age where like I like looking back in the past. I don't want to go live back in the past, but it's fun to visit it.
Yes.
And but at the same time, I'm seeing like things like the Ghostbusters in 4K and the Ghostbusters VHS, and I'm like, I want both of these.
I want to see both. Yeah, I want both of these because it's past and present colliding, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think you're right though. I think the harm in it is when, not to get all philosophical, but it's when you like are just wish to go back. It's like, oh, I need to go back. I want to go back. Then you're missing the moment. But it's like, no. How about just have both? Have your cake and eat it too.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't think there's nothing wrong with visiting the past and maybe, checking out some old 80s flicks on VHS or something. And then also, going forward, I think people are forgetting the past and not learning from it, but it is what it is. But back to Die in a Gunfight, it comes out July 16th.
July 16th.
In theaters and on Apple TV, right?
Correct. Apple TV. Obviously it's a lot of streaming nowadays, but it's actually in theaters worldwide, and here in America it'll be select cities, which will the closer we get to the date, which is pretty close. We're pretty close now, but you'll be seeing kind of in your, especially if you're in a the bigger cities, obviously, but yeah, it'll be in certain theaters, select theaters, and definitely on Apple and probably other VOD platforms, Amazon Prime and whatnot. So,
and I'll definitely be checking it out. It feels to me like it is something that maybe needs to be seen in the theaters. Like even there's that scene with Travis Fimmel and in the trailer, and he's sitting in the theater and he's got the popcorn.
Oh yeah, exactly.
So
those are those meta moments. I can't wait for people to see. And again, Andrew, our writer, always talks about, we took a big swing, and sometimes that's a polarizing thing for some people. Like, what is that? I don't really get what this is, and that's okay. Like it's it has that meta holding a mirror up to film lovers vibe, and it's also at its core. Let's say you're not a film person, or you're not a, you watch things based on maybe you like the romance, maybe you want to see Travis, doing some cool action stuff. Like it has a little of all that stuff, and again, it's like kind of embrace it for what it is, like a playful eye candy, but very still heartfelt. Like hopefully, anyone, especially the very few people out there that are fans of mine or have seen my other work, you still will see, I hope you still will see some of those kind of gritty elements. There's some grit to the movie still. It's not just a, what I would call like a kid's movie, like a CW film or something. Not that there's anything wrong with that Hallmark film. Not that there's anything wrong with those movies.
More for people who are actually film lovers.
Yes, film lovers, and I'm hoping some teenager out there who is fresh off Marvel movies and looking for something a little edgier too will be like, what is this?
That's what also caught my eye. 'Cause, I mean, I'm a huge fan of superhero movies. Don't get me wrong. The Marvel, yeah, I think, but I kind of feel like it's ran its course. I think Endgame should have probably been the end game for a
Yeah,
while. That's just
literally.
me. This is me.
I
You
agree.
know,
Take a
But
decade off.
but it is refreshing to kind of see something that's not a superhero movie or not something else. It's it's like this independent take chance movie, which
Yeah,
that's what I'm. I think a lot of independent films are right now are that you guys are putting out the good work. You know what I mean,
sure,
and
absolutely.
hopefully that will lead to better big mainstream films when you guys get up there. So that's
Yeah,
what I'm looking forward to,
I
and
hope so.
I'm looking
Me too.
forward to this movie too. And so tell us a little bit about the plot of how die in a gunfight. What is that all
Yeah.
about? Without
Well,
giving too much away.
yeah, I'll be very discreet. Well, it's tricky. I mean, again, the backdrop does have that Romeo and Juliet feel, just kind of going off the trailer there. It's like we get it. There's a rivalry, and there's the two kids, are in
Yeah,
love. They're not kids though. That's what I like about it. They're not like 16-year-old, like, what is love?
yeah,
They're kind of like 30 something jaded, like, what do we do? What do we do? Early late 20s, early 30s, like, what do we do with life? And how are
yeah,
we going to be wrapped up in this? And then, of course, business is business when it comes to kind of the mob mentality, crime, family type stuff. Again, playfully, in a playful way. And their actions kind of are two heroes' actions. Choosing to maybe love each other or maybe not love each other. They're trying to find what they want, and with that comes the consequences of the family feud and a lot of other inner workings that it's hard. I don't really want to get into it. It's a unraveling of unique kind of crazy characters that come in and out. All those movies that were that, like, again, you could
yeah,
see. I want it to feel like Christopher Walken could pop up in this movie with some
yeah,
crazy. But we have our own versions of that. That's what I love. We have our Travis Fimmel, we have our Justin Chatwin, and our Emmanuel Chiriki, and all these in the parents, and like very kind of those movies that are just full of intrigue. You're like, well, what is
yeah,
this character up to now? And so yeah, it's at its core, it's a love story, but it's set amongst a bigger world that
yeah,
isn't a comic book world. It isn't a superhero world, but it is larger than life. I don't want to say Shakespearean, but because obviously it's compared to Romeo and Juliet so much already,
yeah.
but like that just big backdrop world where you're just like, what are these characters getting themselves into? One of those movies.
Yeah, and like I said, I get it. When I watched the trailer, I didn't. I mean, I felt the Romeo and Juliet, but I could totally see, like, to get it to everybody out there. Trust me, I could feel it that this is more than a Romeo and Juliet type story. And I do
Yeah.
like that you have like all these eclectic like characters, like the way Travis Fimmel looks in the his outfit, his big flashy
Oh
white
yeah.
outfit and everything, and
Yeah.
then how Justin Chatwin is like this, like Stone
Very
Cold stereo.
tailored.
Yeah,
Yeah. Very sterile.
yeah.
That's exactly it. Yep.
So I like when like oddball characters just come out of nowhere in a
Yeah. Me
movie, and you're
too.
like, who's this guy all of a sudden, or
Yes.
who's this lady? That's cool,
Yeah, I'm
So,
glad you like. I mean, that's exactly the vibe. That it's like, what is this about, and what? And I think
yeah,
that the writers, to their credit, they went through so many drafts of this where they got to hopefully have fun with it. Of course, that's also can be a strenuous, painful process also. But like, so many iterations of this script where the characters kind of evolved into what they are, and then of course the actors took that and ran with it. So yeah, hopefully there will be some
yeah.
delight with that when they do come and go in this movie.
Yeah, I'm just the more you talk about it, the more I'm getting excited for it. So I definitely will be checking it out on July 16th.
Awesome.
Probably be on demand. I would like to see it in theaters, but I actually don't live out by a city, so
Right.
I'm
No
pretty
worries.
rural. So, but
It's tricky. Anywhere you can watch it, as long as you can crank it up and
yeah, pop
have
it
some
in and
popcorn and treat it like one of those old movies you'd stumble upon,
oh yeah.
and let it take you on a ride.
See, that's what really gets me because I do a lot like here on my channel. Like you said, you were going through some. I do a lot of like '80s
Yeah.
nostalgia stuff.
Yeah. I love it.
Like just recently, I just watched Vicious Fun on Shudder. and
Oh,
that
cool.
was a pretty good flick too.
I've never seen it, but I've seen that poster on because we have Shudder. I mean, and I scanned through it, and there's all these random things. I'm like, what is this? Well, how have I not seen this? What is this?
Yeah, you can find some like it's just like that's why I mean I'm a huge physical media supporter.
Yeah,
Because I really like buying my movies on. I like have a hard copy, but I
totally.
really dig Shudder because Shudder takes me back to like going to the video store because they have all these crazy horror flicks on there, and you just like see these things like, what is that? How did I miss that? And then like Vicious Fun was a good one, and but I'm just, I like that you have that sensibility with your storytelling, with your directing, with your style, and how that has influenced you because it just makes movie watching more fun. When you get into stuff like that.
I agree because it's hopefully it connects. I mean, everything is that's why some of the best filmmakers, you're not just like you put what you're influenced by, and it doesn't even just have to be movies. It's books and feelings and memories, and that to me is what what filmmaking as a medium is literally this combination of every art form put together, and every emotion and feeling and music and dance and choreography, and it's literally everything. And it's like, well, where do you borrow from? It's like all the stuff that inspired you and motivated you and moved you at all those times in your life that were just for whatever reason they happened. Even now, like I always think I'm over that, like I'm never gonna stumble upon something like that, but then no, you just did the exact same thing. You're like, I just randomly watched this, and it's like, how did I not see this one? And you see that has a huge fan base, and you're like, well, where did this fan base come from? And how did I not know about it? I thought I knew about everything. That to me is like where you draw from, and it's cool.
And I mean, I dig that too because I lost my train of thought.
Yeah, no, I know we're just right about the good old days.
But I dig that. Like I said, that I'm glad that it inspires people, and I'm glad to know that there's still people out there that are like that. Like you said, we're at the age now where we're kind of, we're taking our influences and trying to take over. I mean, not like take over, but move it forward.
It's our turn, hopefully our generation. And I think that goes across the board beyond movies. It's like we're finally like we had like I don't know, it's like a weird slow start maybe because whatever, we don't have to get into politics and generational gaps and stuff, but like I feel like it's like, all right, finally we're starting to have our voice, and I think that's why there's so many like 90s trend. We went through the 80s, we're still in it with so many things, but now I'm seeing so many 90s trends. It's like, whoa, kids dress like how we dress, like what, like this is cool.
I've started to see that too, and like I actually did a documentary here on my channel called "Why We Still Love '80s Movies," and that was talked about how like the guys like John Carpenter and how they were influenced by the 50s. They grew up in the 50s and they started using that influence in their movies, and then how people like our age are now sort of making the movies and stuff that were influenced by the 80s and even like the 90s films. So they're bringing that kind of back with them, and hopefully the movies can start getting better. Not that they're not bad. I mean, like I said, they're not bad. It's just it kind of feels like we've lost something in movies.
Exactly. I agree. I don't know what it is. And of course, there's great stuff in there, but there's still something missing. There's something so freeing about the 80s and 90s too, but 80s especially for me. Like if you look at how many iconic movie characters that weren't based on anything else prior. They were influenced by things, but they weren't like, oh, that's literally Superman. Oh, that's literally Batman. It's like, no, we have like we're saying, like Freddy Krueger and Indiana Jones and the Ghostbusters and Doc and Marty. You have characters that are original cinema characters. They're not based on books and stuff. And it's like they're so free back then. I feel like they're just so freed to do that stuff.
Yeah, they were like these maverick directors who were given free reins to do what they wanted. They took these chances and they made some of our favorites. And I see that, I hear that in you when the way you're talking about Die in a Gunfight, how you said you wanted to go big and you wanted to, and put this in there and put that in there and take chances, take a risk. And the writers took a chance, took a risk with the story. So, I see that. And I really hope this is like a pretty big movie for you. And because, from all I've seen from you, it looks like, you got it. I mean, I don't know. I'm not like in the film industry or anything like
Right,
that,
right.
but
No,
it looks like you got it. It looks like you get it. So
thank you.
I'm
Well,
looking forward to that.
you're a film fan, so like
Yeah.
you get it from that side, and that's, I want to make movies for I want to make movies for everyone, obviously, but like I also, I want my, the rando people who just are like, what is this? Click, cool, that was awesome, or that sucked, whatever. But I also want to, make sure I'm always speaking to my roots, which are, people like you and people like all of us, that we wanted to just watch this stuff religiously, kind of, and grew up on it. It's like I want to explore all those avenues, whether it's, who knows what's next, but like it's like whether it's sci-fi or whatever. It's like I want to, I don't want to be pigeonholed into like, okay, I only make these types of movies. That's another reason why Gunfight was so appealing. It's like, okay, cool, like this is a outside the box.
Yeah,
let's see what happens.
I'd like to see you do a sci-fi movie. I think
I would love to.
I think it could be really good. That'd be cool.
Let's fingers crossed, because I would love to tackle every genre one day, I hope.
That'd be
all different approaches.
Yeah, and you even got like Billy Crudup. Did I say his name right?
Yeah, Billy Crudup. Yeah,
he's the narrator of the whole thing. So that's, I mean, you got narration, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, we got narration. Again, we were like, man, we got to go big with this. We got to go big or go home when it comes to, even, I mean, when we were, COVID happened as we were kind of wrapping up and editing and all through editing, we were like, well, we're locked away here. We need to make this movie, any shortcomings that we have that we can't go, normally you might be able to get a little extra money to go do some little skeleton crew to film this subplot or do this or fix that aspect of the story, which is rare in indie films. It's not like we get to go do reshoots or anything.
Yeah.
Maybe if you absolutely need it. But for us, it's like it almost freed us to, it's like, well, we're locked in a room editing, the whole world's locked in a room, so it's like, let's see what we come up with. And as a team, we all kind of, really leaned into those movie tropes, in, narration being one of them, because we're like, this is fun. Like, this is what this movie, again, is, this kind of meta thing, self-referential and tongue-in-cheek. It's like, it's like, let's, who can we get to help, narrate the story, and who can we get to do that? It's like all those little things we had time to kind of flesh out and hopefully make work. It works for us. We're happy. I mean, I'm pumped that Billy Crudup narrates the movie. It was so awesome.
Dr. Manhattan himself. So,
his voice too is so good.
Yeah, it's like, that's why when I heard it in the trailer, I was like, ooh, he's like, their actions have consequences or whatever. It says like, oh, that's pretty neat.
Perfect. That's all part of the plan.
But I'm really into it. I'm trying to figure out. I want to talk to you a little bit longer. We've been going about 30 minutes. So did you have an idea about how long you wanted to go?
No, whatever's good for you.
I'm pretty free for the most part.
Yeah, I'm happy to keep chatting.
Because I want to keep asking you stuff about the movie, but I don't. I don't want to give it up. I know you can't give it all away, and I don't want to be spoiled. So I'm trying to keep it.
You gotta savor it when it comes out.
Yeah. You get it, but like, I'm hoping people out there are getting teased. I would show the trailer on here, but I'm afraid that I would probably get well, YouTube, if you with Lionsgate, they might give me a claim. It wouldn't be bad or anything. It's just
sure
because they don't want you to show the whole movie and the music and stuff. So
yep.
Yeah. So, but check out the trailer, guys, if you want to. It's by Lionsgate. Just type in "Die in a Gunfight" trailer. It'll be like pop right up. So check that out, guys, if you want to know what we're talking about. But yeah, so like, what are some of your favorite 80s, like cult classic 80s flicks?
Good question. I mean, the kind of more standard ones, obviously, were, when you're younger, for me, were like the Raiders of the Lost Ark and Ghostbusters, and Back to the Future is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah.
And again, when we were little, we would rent, like, we actually rented The Thing. We rented, I remember, Child's Play 2. Like, our parents didn't do a great job. They were kind of, we would base things, we'd choose based on the box. We'd be like, cool, that looks like a weird, cool thing. Freddy Krueger scares me and looks interesting. We want to watch this, whatever it was. And I remember The Thing for sure. And like those movies, you know, we watched them and they kind of freaked us out and it was weird, but they stuck with us. And, you know, every time you go back to the video store, we'd go right back to those aisles and be like, oh, there's Godzilla. There's, you know, my brother's a huge Godzilla fan and, you know, pretty much seen every one like a million times, and we'd rent those over and over. And, but yeah, I mean, yeah, for me, like kind of my favorite one that's kind of risen, and it's not even now it's more mainstream, I feel like, but the Thing is kind of the newest one that I've added to my list of like, dude, this movie is just mind blowing. Like every time I watch
so good.
It gets better and better. Like John Carpenter, a lot of John Carpenter's stuff, his early stuff, it's like he was making like indie films. Like those were like, I mean, I guess The Thing was his first studio film, but
you know, I mean, Halloween was like one of the biggest all-time independent films ever.
Yeah. And it's just him kind of taking radical chances, and like for me, those are the ones that kind of have circled back. You know, I've circled back to, and of course, like the first Ninja Turtles movie is like serious. I know everyone like kind of laughs and like, oh, because I think a lot of people's minds.
I love it, man.
It's amazing, and if you really. I get why the second and third, like, you know, I still love the second one, and then they go downhill, but like, it's like, I still like the third one, but it's like, I think people think though, like, oh, cool, they just clump it in with like a kid's thing. They're not. It's like, no, if you sat down, and they probably haven't seen it in 15, 20, 30. It's like, no, if you watch the first Ninja Turtles film, it is like grit. I swear you could splice in shots of Mean Streets. You know, it has that gritty film look, and it's so grounded. And yes, they're giant turtles, but like
it is much more darker than people think.
It is.
You know, I love it.
I would argue that it's darker than the first 1989 Batman. Like, you know what I mean? It's more visceral and more gritty. It shows New York like gritty, and like the whole Shredder and the Foot Clan, how they're just like kind of all the orphans off the street, all the lost souls. You know, it's like, man, this is awesome.
And they're like trading cartons of cigarettes too, like teenagers.
Exactly. Like to me, that is like always stuck with me as like, this is different from the other kids' stuff. I didn't know it at the time, but you're like, I almost like didn't like the first one as much when I was little, because you're like, I don't really know what's happening. Whereas in the second one, they're making goofy jokes and they just kind of they don't barely even use their weapons and stuff.
Because all the parents outraged.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, they had swords.
Swords. You can't stab someone. But
But I remember watching. I saw it opening night in theaters, and like I said, I live out in a small town. And when we got to the theater, it was wrapped around the building. We had to wait in line forever just to go see it, because it's like that stuck with me, because it's one of the first movies I remember seeing in a movie theater. That's a good point. Those memories of, you know, stuff that isn't even a thing now, like waiting in a line like that. It's like that, you know, those memories were those moments were sculpting and, you know, leaving an impression on why we like these movies and why they stuck with us, and that's a great example. Those are the first few early movies that, you know, I saw too, and I'm sure every kid, well, who knows what kids do now? I mean, they just watch stuff on Netflix, and well, who knows? But I mean, what their memories are going to be? But yeah, those are the types of movies for sure. Like a lot of those I know are mainstream; they're not necessarily like super culty. But yeah, those are the ones that still forever will always be my go-to kind of. Those are good ones, man. Like The Thing and Ninja Turtles, you're right up my league, man. I love those. I've talked about The Thing on here before millions of times. I mean, Ninja Turtles, I mean, it's just like I did a video I did a video on the first time I saw the Ninja Turtles movie.
What? I haven't seen that one. I need to watch that.
It's one of my earlier ones, but I talked about how I saw it, and I talked about how the theater was wrapped around and everything.
That's great.
I love that, man. That's like my movie. That's what I grew up with. Like, and then Superman, the movie with Christopher Reeve. I mean, that's not really a cult movie. That's like a superhero movie, but that's like the first movie I remember seeing on TV. Same. And it is like that character. I'm a huge Superman fan, if you haven't noticed. But that character just like stuck with me. I wanted to know everything about him. I wanted to see all the movies, all the shows, all the comics. And then I credit that movie because that movie got me into like sci-fi films, into action films, and into horror flicks. And, you know, that led me down to Joe Bob Briggs and all the late night movies and stuff. So I credit it for my nerd existence.
No, dude, that's amazing. And that's a great example too. That's another one that you're right. It was I remember we like taped it, or our parents taped it for us or whatever. I remember watching it that night, but also like again over and over.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's just something about it was like magical and weirdly it kind of transcends superhero movies in my mind, because it kind of has some drama, it does have sci-fi, has everything. And you're right, it's kind of like that was another one. That was the early Christopher Reeves. Like for me, like to this day, there's shots in that movie even that just instantly take me back to that first time, or at least what I think is the first time that I saw it on TV. And those are the movies that, again, it's like whoever's raising their kids out there, it's like those little things leave impressions.
They do. And like
lead you.
The casting of that movie has been the way it was cast. I know like so many other directors have used that as a blueprint for their movies, because like Christopher Reeve was an unknown, and then they surrounded him with all these like well-known actors, and like it's so I kind of even see that in bringing it back to Die in a Gunfight. I kind of see it in Die in a Gunfight, like you got Alex Daddario. I'm so bad with names.
No worries.
You got Diego, and then you got Travis Fimmel, who's come up through Vikings, and you got Justin Chatwin, he's been around for a while, and then you got the parents and all that, Billy Crudup. So I see that in your casting. See, it's like played such a huge role. I don't think people realize how big of a role that movie, because superhero movies, everybody, it's a superhero movie, blah blah blah, but you don't realize how much that has impacted film through the years.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so true. And like that's what's obviously everyone could talk to their blue in the face about what they love and what their things are, but like whether you like it or something or not, like I've really learned again as a viewer and as a taking media in, it's like not to criticize as much. Again, I think it's because you get older and you just get softer, and you're like, cool, that was fun, that was cool, that was whatever. Wait, great. When you're younger, at least early as 5 years ago, I would just tear everything apart. I hate everything. Like I hate movies; they're all terrible. But then every now and then, there's one thing that like changes my mind. But like now, I'm like, no, like I don't know the circumstances of what this movie was, or maybe you don't like, you can't dismiss things as quickly as you used to. It's like just watch. Yeah, okay, you don't like the original Superman. It's like some young person now might have complaints because it's boring or it's this or that or it's dated. It's like, no, you got to like appreciate every piece of the bigger picture cinematic puzzle. And that's what even movies coming out, it's like we're so harsh, so quick to be harsh about something. It's like, no, like what is this playing? What part is this playing right now? We don't know yet, like this movie could be big later, or people don't know how small this movie really is, or how how many years it took for that movie to get made, or whatever it is, or how many lives it's influencing. It's like, you got to appreciate every movie for what it is, and know that it's changing someone's life.
I mean, I try to, even like movies that I don't really like, I try to find the good in, because there's a lot that goes into these things, and some movies I don't want to say anything bad. I'm not a huge fan of this, like the new Star Wars. Like some of those I could be like, I just can't find good in those much as I want to. I just can't. But there's other movies that that are considered bad flicks, and you go, this is a bad flick. But you know what? That one scene with that dude or that girl who did this, that's a good part.
Exactly. I agree. And I think that's okay. And I think, talking about Star Wars and stuff, it's like, all right, whatever. Like if there were movies that you kind of had to vent about, it's the ones that did have $200 million and should have planned it right. Not pointing saying things like who are we to say any of this stuff, but like, off the record, I'm sure I could go on a whole tirade just like you about Star Wars.
I've made it pretty clear on my channel. I mean, I don't like the harp. Like I talked to you, I kind of like to talk about what I like, but I've made it clear I'm not a fan of the new Star Wars flicks. What they've done.
No, and that's smart of you to kind of always be positive when you can, but at the same time, when movies have all the resources in the world, you can be frustrated about it because in theory, I know nothing's perfect, but you shouldn't miss the mark so much. But with smaller movies, it's like there's millions. There's so many factors that people don't understand how hard it is. It's just like, dude, we're lucky that we got a shot off that day, let alone what was supposed to be on paper or what, and the creative solutions that come together from the team just blow my mind. Like, you have as a director, have a vision, and you're like, you're trying to hit that. I never try to have one singular vision. I try to have like, it's one vision, yes, but it's like kind of two rails that I look like, you can go this far this way, but don't go over that line. You can go this far this way. And you have a team that's keeping you within those. Because if you try to hit that one line, you're never going to get it. Because it's impossible. And so anyways, yeah, it's like there's so many factors that go into filmmaking, that even the giant one, you never know who's pulling what strings. Emperor Palpatine pulled some strings on that
something. I don't know what they were smoking when they did.
I just talking about it. We're not going to go on this tirade.
Yeah. It's been talked about so many times. Like, I mean, like, even you could say, why didn't they put all the originals in one shot at least? Once you have them all there. Anyways,
I know. That's the one thing. That's it.
Yeah. So it's like the one thing everybody wanted, and you couldn't even do that.
Yeah. Like, don't even get it.
But yeah, I mean, I'm really looking forward to Die in a Gunfight, and I do want to see it. And like I said, it did pique my interest. And I'm glad I reached out to you, because like I said, if you don't ever ask, it's always a no. And you were your brother who does Monster Vision, and you guys are really cool, and you just like you touch all the right member berries or whatever you want to say in your head. But you're doing it, but you're also doing your own things, and you're very creative, and it's also, I can see the originality in it, and I enjoy that, because there's, I don't know, it's just like something about it. Just, I love film. As bad as film may get, I still love film.
Yeah, that honestly is the most pure good attitude to have, and I think more people are coming around to that. I think it's because we all just devour so much content. It's like, why? Let's just appreciate what we got. We're living in a crazy cool time where the sky's the limit. So it's like, let's appreciate the stuff that where we came from and where we're going. And hopefully, me and my brother and all the people that worked on Gunfight and all the different people on my other films, can just keep, plugging away and trying to make good content, make fresh, interesting things. And we're not always going to hit the mark, but like, I want to have fun with it now. And I want to be like, just appreciate what I'm getting to do. And I'm thank you for saying all that stuff. I'm glad you recognize that in the work and in me. And, so let's hope you enjoy the movie, and hope everyone else.
I mean, you could, like, people who just, like you said, consume content, because I've had this conversation with people about, we've made movies and TV and entertainment content. Yeah. It's no longer entertainment. Yeah. It's just trying to just rush it out there. Watch this, watch that. Yep. And I think I like entertainment, and your movie looks entertaining, like entertainment. So that's what I like. And, I kind of lost my thought there. No worries. But I'll just say, like, entertaining, it looks entertaining. And tell us a little bit about your other movies before this that led, because like we've been talking about this and everything, and but like your other movies, like I looked into All the Creatures. That movie was, I mean, I don't know if I could watch that, not against you, because I saw this, I saw it, and I didn't want to spoil myself or anything, but I saw it, read into it a little bit. I was like, oh, this movie, I could totally see how it's a good movie, but man, as someone who takes care of kids and stuff, totally,
I hear you, and like it's definitely a movie that you got to be in the right frame of mind to watch, kind of thing. And it's one of those things you got to you got to stick with it, because it's like, it's kind of a slow burn, but it's I love, like, where you just, those movies that start ramping, you're kind of like, it's like a downward spiral, like, I can't look away. And David Dastmalchian is the actor who stars in it, and with Karen, he also wrote it. And
I did not know that one.
He wrote it, and he also wrote our first film, which I highly recommend you looking up the trailer for and checking out. That one's called Animal. That's another very similar. It's Dave. It's loosely based on Dave's life as an addict, a heroin addict, and that was tough to tackle, because one, it's based on
untrue,
and Tim, the actor right there who lived it, is the one who's you're working with, and you want to do it justice. And I didn't know much about that world other than what I'd seen in movies. So
Yeah.
to me, if you really watch that, that's like my purest to this day, feels like my purest kind of, it's me. I feel like it's the hustle of, a bunch of young people being like, we just got to go make this. We got to pull ourselves together and just see what happens. And we actually won a special grand jury prize at South by Southwest in Austin, Texas. And that's kind of what kind of launched me into getting to do these other two movies, where
I would definitely check that out because I like David. I like his work.
cool.
I remember seeing him in The Dark Knight is where I first saw him.
Yeah, same.
And honestly, that his scene sticks with you. It truly does, because like when his face and the way he acts, and that's when when he's flipping the coin in front of him and all that, and it sticks with you, and then you start seeing him and you go, hey, that's the guy from The Dark Knight, and you start to see how you see him, he's got good talent, and he's a big fan of Svengoolie too, so because that wins me over. Like, I love Svengoolie.
Me too. And he's into that whole world too. He's all of this stuff, the horror host, and he has a comic book that he's that's out 4-part comic book with more coming, I think. I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about that, but either way, he's amazing. And we became really close because I saw The Dark Knight when I was in college in Chicago, and I obviously love The Dark Knight. I think that's one of my favorite modern movies, and even though that's already getting old, but which is scary to think about. But
when you start thinking like The Dark Knight's not
that's not new anymore. But yeah, to me, I swear it's just what you said. Like, I was like, that scene, it almost like the movie, when I first saw it, like the movie paused for me, and I was like, who's that guy? I'm gonna work with him. I can track that guy down somehow. And because he was so interesting, and I did, and we connected, and a few years later is when we made Animals, and we kind of, I think, got to know each other enough and felt each other out enough that we were like, all right, we vibe well, we can make fun little short films together. And he presented Animals to me, and I was like, let's go do this. And same thing, similar with All Creatures, is like we're fresh off that kind of momentum from Animals and this success of it, however you want to look at that, but like I was proud of it, and I was like, let's go do what else you got, kind of thing. And he had that script ready to go, which is kind of a spiritual sequel. All Creatures Here Below is kind of like, we say it's like it's not a sequel at all, but like
it's like John Carpenter's his Apocalypse trilogy.
Exactly.
They're like spiritual sequels, but they're not related. Yeah, so
perfect way to look at it. And like obviously Gunfight's a far departure from those, but like it still kind of deals with similar themes of kind of love and where do we go from here kind of thing, like what do we do. Those of course do it in a much kind of, I don't want to say bleak, because in my mind they're not bleak. They're very heavy and hard to watch. And they're not hard to watch. They're, again, you got to be in that frame of mind.
You got to be in it.
If you want to watch a Marvel movie that night, don't turn on All Creatures Here Below. If you're kind of tired of the green screen, flashy video game look, it's like, okay, this is a real world. I kind of want to. What are these characters about?
Sometimes you got to get. Sometimes you just need a film. Something different. That's what I said. I mean, like I have nothing against like the Marvel movies. I mentioned earlier, but sometimes you just need something different, like a film, like like we said, from the past. And even if that's not like an 80s, like All Creatures or Animals, or not like 80s film, but it's like a true film that you don't see much of anymore. So
character pieces where you're watching characters, and you're like, man, these people could exist in real life, even though they're in movie circumstances or not even pretty realistic circumstances. It's like and those are even smaller films, really, really low budget films. And I hope, at least how I view them, and how I'm so proud of the crew that I got to work with, because we all were just hungry to be like, let's make these the best we can make them. And it's definitely check those out when you're in the mindset. And I get it. It's not for everyone. And
it's not like, like I said, it's not like I wouldn't watch them, because they definitely seem like movies I would watch, but sometimes you got to be in the mood, like you said. You got to be in the mood for that heaviness. Because I've seen that. Like, I will check out the trailer for Animals too, and I'll check that movie out too because that sounds interesting. But like when I watched All Creatures and looked into it a little bit, I was like, okay, this movie is gonna get heavy.
Yeah.
So when I watch this, I want to make sure I got that time to watch it.
Totally. That's exactly what it is. And I always tell people, I'm like, just go into it with that mindset. And that's what's fun about Gunfight, to be like, it's kind of the opposite. It's like, hey, this is like that fun Saturday night flick that you can order pizza and be like, dude, let's check out that movie. What was that all about? And kind of just get lost in it in a different way, like a roller coaster ride kind of way. And so we'll see, how people register it, especially if they know my work. But but again, I don't want to hold myself down to.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you go from like those movies to Die in a Gunfight to hopefully like a sci-fi movie or something, or even a comedy.
Yeah, I know. Geez, that's what I'm most afraid of. I honestly terrified of comedies. They just seem so hard. It seems easy, but then you're like, no, they're the hardest of all. They you gotta, to keep an audience laughing, it's harder almost than keep them on the edge of their seat.
Well, one of the things what I heard was like the Farrelly brothers.
Yeah,
they said they used to watch episodes of the Andy Griffith Show to remind them how easy comedy can be.
Because
they kind of movies they make. Dumb and Dumber, which is a great.
Don't know my favorite comedy of all time. I'm not even.
They would watch I don't know if it was on the set of that one or part 2, but they said they would watch episodes of the Andy Griffith Show because it would remind them how easy comedy, how easy and simple it doesn't have to be overthought. So there's a little.
It's in the minute detail. I love that. And there's a perfect example of brilliant filmmakers who have made a million things who still go back to the core. Things that they watched probably as a kid and probably cracked up at, and exactly. It's like let's remember the basics, and when you get lost in it all, you can get all the clutter kind of in the way, and you're like, no, just remember the core. Why do you like it? Why do you want to watch Andy Griffith? Why do you want to watch? Just put that in there, and so that's cool. I love that. I love those stories.
Yeah, and I thank you for time. We've been going about an hour.
Dude, no, I think that
great. I loved it. I enjoyed this chat. It was great. And once again, to everybody watching and everybody that will come back and watch this, check out Die in a Gunfight, July 16th in theaters and on Apple TV and video on demand. Go check out the trailer so you know what you're getting into, because it looks like it's a really good movie with a really great cast, and it looks like a really great director as well. So
thank you.
Thank you to everybody in the chat, Force of Light Entertainment, Martin. And I'm sure there was other people that didn't chat. They were just watching. But thank you to everybody watching, everybody in the chat. Thank you, Collin.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we'll end it there. And maybe I'll have you back on again sometime, talk to you about your next film and whatever else,
Anytime you need me, hit me up.
Yeah, definitely. I'm glad I did this.
I appreciate it. Likewise.
And please subscribe and hit that bell for notifications so you can get more cool interviews like this, and watch all my crazy videos that I do on 80s and cult classic and all kinds of nonsense I put on here. I just do what I like.
That's what you got to do. It's perfect.
Yeah.